do you mean the Blake Lively versus Justin Baldoni drama is still Hold on, something doesn't feel right. Order in the court! Barrister Katie's here. And let me tell you, today's case, the absolute circus that was September in the Baldoni versus Blake Lively drama. Okay? Now stick with me here because we've got Perez Hilton, 4,600 missing signal chats, and some crazy guy trying to jump over Travis Kelce's fence. So let's break it down. Kicking September off hot, September 3rd, Perez Hilton gets a win in court where I guess the judge in Las Vegas said that Lively's team is going to have to do a little bit more digging before he's able to award the subpoena. Meanwhile, that same day, Jed Wallace's attorneys roast Blake Lively with Taylor Swift lyrics. Do you remember? Sit on the tall bright before you lose it all. Finally, also on September 3rd, the judge decides that Skyline Agency needs to hand over all of their signal chats related to the lawsuitinfo.com to Blake Lively and her legal team. On September 4th, Blake Lively's legal team unveils a new witness that said they've had multiple repeated negative interactions with Justin Baldoni on a past production. But details are vague, everything is unverified, but there seems to be attempts at trying to pierce through his credibility. Lively and her legal team say that under California's new Me Too state law 47.1, that Justin Baldoni and his legal team owe her millions and millions of dollars for filing a frivolous lawsuit, his countersuit, that got dismissed back in June. November 9th, after an in-camera review with the judge, he ordered that Katie Case and Brianna Kozlow have to hand over their text messages, like the ones that are with Jed Wallace and their dads and some other legal teams. They were previously trying to say, yeah, it's all legal communication, and the judge was like, I looked at it. They can have it. And they were like, oh, fine, I'll give it to you. Ooh. Then we get to September 11th, and that's when Justin Baldoni and his legal team filed that bombshell letter where they were like, Taylor Swift agreed to go and do a deposition for us. Didn't you know? And everybody was like, oh, she did what? Don't worry, though, because the next day, Blake Lively and her legal team are like, she didn't agree to nothing. And then we hear from Taylor Swift's lawyer, who did enter the chat, and he's like, we didn't agree to a deposition, but if we're told we have to be at one, then we'll be there. So take that for what you will, because I'm pretty sure if Taylor Swift did not want to go and do a deposition, they would have fought it tooth and nail. So eventually that same day, we did end up hearing from the court, and they said, no Wayfair parties, I will not allow you to have a deposition extension in order to depose Taylor Swift. You need to get it done within your proposed timeline. So all of the headlines that are out there are saying, Taylor Swift, judge rules she doesn't have to be deposed. That's not true at all, you guys. She just had to be deposed by the 30th of September, which was yesterday. So I bet you if she wanted to sit for a deposition, if they wanted to talk to her, it was done. So, and we just haven't heard about it. Meanwhile, on that same day, the New York Times actually moves the court and says, hey, yo, we would like a final judgment ruling on that case you dismissed us out of on June 9th. So if you don't remember, the counterclaims, Justin Baldoni and his legal team actually sued the New York Times for defamation, and those claims were dismissed on June 9th. So if you go back in time, the New York Times is like, hey, so we would really like to just be completely all the way done. Like, we don't want to get dragged back into this if there is an appeal after the total trial is over. So preemptively, the New York Times filed on the 12th and said, hey, we need a final judgment to just get us out of this. Please and thank you. On the 14th, we hear from the Wayfair party saying like, hey, oh, did we forget to tell you? Jed Wallace is represented by our legal team. Here's our papers saying so. And the judge was like, why didn't you just fucking say that before? Like, I don't get it. And so there was a little bit of, and then we hear on the 16th that the Wayfair parties bring in Alexandra Shapiro, which hit headlines like, Justin Baldoni hires the Diddy lawyer and blah, blah, blah. But we later find out the reasons as to why, and I'll get into it when we get there. Things were a little quiet until on the 22nd, we heard about this Justin Lee Fisher that jumped over the fence at Travis Kelce's house trying to supposedly serve deposition papers to Taylor Swift. I personally did some digging on it. You can go do that. We'll see what ends up happening out of all of that. But it still remains questionable on what that guy was doing there and why. The 22nd, we did also hear from the Wayfair party saying, you know, our countersuit was not frivolous. Blake Lively's wild. Like, we shouldn't have to pay her millions of dollars because she's good. This is where things get spicy because on September 24th, the Wayfair parties file a motion to compel Van Zandt in the Jones v. Abel case. So a related case, if you haven't seen, just go back and watch my other videos because it's too much to get into. But they say, we need to know who the representative is and that you're going to bring a corporate designee for our deposition of Van Zandt. Dun, dun, dun. And speculation was out there like, could it be Ryan Reynolds because he is the new CEO of Van Zandt? And we all know that Van Zandt is the shell company for Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds. If you haven't seen the Van Zandt, go watch the Van Zandt video. But we won't get in the weeds with it. Same time, that same day, the Wayfair parties were also fighting in the main lawsuit. They didn't want to hand over those text messages. They were like, no, Jet's covered. You know what? The text messages, by the way, they're duplicates. Like they're trying to figure it out. It's like, there's not 4,600 messages. It's literally like 290. It's not that many. It's just because so many people had to produce them. Everybody had to make copies and then copies of copies and then all these different things. Makes it look like there's not. So a lot. On September 26th, the Wayfair parties made some moves. First, they filed a declaration where they attached a copy of Blake Lively's unsigned employment contract. But she just never signed it. An oversight or strategic? That's the question. But later that day, they file a gigantic boom, boom, boom MJOP motion for judgment on the pleadings, trying to get rid of some of those labor-related claims and the FEHA claims that Blake Lively is bringing against them, dismissed. Supposedly panicking in the background, Blake Lively and her legal team filed an emergency motion saying that there's an emergent need to force them to depose this guy at 8 a.m. Because that sounds emergent, right? Whatever. She got her way. They granted it. Whatever. He's like, yeah, you get this much time, you get that much time, whatever. Finally, on the 29th, a much panicked Blake Lively and her legal team filed a letter reply to the back and forth that's been going on about the California damages she thinks she is owed. She wants to get paid out. She wants money right now for things that have not yet been judged on. She says that the countersuit he filed was frivolous, and she filed this letter, and it was not necessarily her team's best piece of work. And, you know, we got to hand it to them. They're under a lot of pressure right now. So, finally, yesterday, September 30th, Blake Lively and her legal team filed a letter, a sad letter, trying to counter the arguments for the motions for judgment on the pleadings. And I will say, if you've not read the letter, to me it reads like, but you can't do that. This is unfair. They should have, like, it's not their turn. They should have done it. Like, that's how I was reading it. Yesterday, on the 30th, the New York Times filed a new complaint against the Wayfair parties in New York State Court, and they are trying to utilize Judge Lyman's findings in that federal case to say, hey, yo, they owe us some monies now. They're using that New York State anti-SLAPP statute going, I like my money now, please. Thank you very much. So what are we looking out for here in October? Well, let me tell you. We're going to find out, are Blake Lively's, all of her claims that she brought in that second amended complaint, are they still alive or are they done? And then we're going to, most likely, because yesterday was the last day that the Wayfair parties were able to take depositions, I anticipate that we're going to get so many letters and so many replies with deposition transcripts, and I am so excited to see what tea gets spilled onto the legal docket. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. Okay, I'm really hot. This thing does not breathe. Holy cow. Thanks for playing along with me, and I'll see. It was kind of pushing on my head. I was like, talk to you guys later. Thanks.